Only a small fraction of people have a net worth of $2 million, and it's probably less than you'd think. If you lined up 100 adults in the United States, only a small handful would have crossed that $2 million mark. So that leaves the big question. How many people in the US really have a net worth of $2 million or more? And we're talking total net worth here. Not income, not job title, not retirement savings, but real net worth. Everything they own minus everything they owe. It's what someone actually owns after the dust settles, not what they appear to have from the outside. It feels like a lot, right? Social media and headlines make multimillionaire status seem normal, but it's far from it. Seeing people on TikTok, colleagues constantly traveling and dining out, and those who seem to have everything together can give the impression that they're all thriving. When that's all you see, it starts to feel normal. In reality, when you step away from the highlights and look at real data, the number of people with a truly large net worth is shockingly small. Multimillionaires are far rarer than social media makes them seem. So the real question isn't just who has $2 million or more, but how uncommon that milestone actually is when you zoom out and look at the numbers. And this is where the perspective shifts. Even though $2 million sounds like a massive jump from the first, the most difficult part of the journey is usually reaching the first million. That's the phase that demands the most sacrifice, discipline, and trial and error. It's where saving matters more than investing. Mistakes are more costly, and progress often feels painfully slow. It's where you learn how to be rich, and once you do, things get much easier. Once that first million is reached, the rules begin to change. Growth starts to be driven less by sheer effort and more by momentum. Your assets are already working, your experience compounds alongside your money, and small choices start having a much bigger impact. But here's the key. This principle isn't limited to those who already have $1 million. No matter where you are in your wealth journey, the same concept applies. Momentum takes over a little bit day by day. With the right foundations in place, moving from $1 to $2 million becomes far more achievable than most people realize. In fact, the data suggests that many who reach $1 million invested, not just in net worth, but actually in compounding assets, are already on a trajectory where the next million becomes largely a matter of time. Understanding why this shift happens can completely change how milestones feel and may reveal that your next breakthrough could be closer than it seems, regardless of where you are. And just to be perfectly clear, when we talk about net worth here, we mean total net worth. Everything you own minus everything you owe. That includes your home equity, retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, business equity, investments, any equity in vehicles, and even personal belongings. It's not limited to money set aside for retirement, and it's not just the cash sitting in your bank account. It's the full picture of your financial life, including assets that aren't immediately liquid and can't be easily spent. That distinction matters, because net worth on paper and usable money are often very different things. Estimates from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances suggest that about 5 to 7% of U.S. adults have a net worth of $2 million or more. Put another way, out of every 100 adults, just 5 to 7 have reached that level. Even with all the flashy lifestyles we see in headlines, luxury ads, and online, most people simply aren't anywhere near that milestone. Hitting $2 million isn't just impossible, it's far from typical. And that's exactly why understanding how wealth actually grows is so important if you want to be part of that small group. Now compare that to roughly 10% of US adults who have a net worth of $1 million or more. Still a small minority, but nearly double the size of the $2 million group. And it's critical to remember what that $1 million usually consists of. For many people, a large portion comes from their home equity. These are often individuals who bought a home years ago or even decades ago, paid down the mortgage steadily, and benefited from long-term appreciation. So while the $1 million figure sounds impressive, much of it reflects slow, consistent growth over time rather than sudden financial windfalls. Now let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions. It's common to assume that a $2 million net worth means $2 million sitting in cash or invested in stocks and retirement accounts. At least that's how the typical person sees it. While that's technically possible, it's not how it usually looks in real life. Most people's $2 million is spread across many different items. But what surprises most people is just how much of that wealth is tied up in their home. For the regular household, the home isn't just where they live, it's the single largest contributor to their net worth. In fact, roughly 2/3 of the average household's wealth is tied up in home equity. Applying that to someone with a $1 million net worth, that means they might have something like $600,000 in home equity, $300,000 in retirement accounts, and another $100,000 spread across cash, vehicles, and other assets. Yet when most people hear the word net worth, they picture liquid wealth, large investment accounts, or stacks of cash. The reality is very different. Even for someone worth $2 million, a significant portion of wealth may be locked in their primary residence. So yes, they're wealthy, but that doesn't mean cash is pouring in every month. Being rich on paper usually means assets spread out. Some compounding over time, some depreciating, not money you can spend tomorrow. This also explains why a $1 million net worth doesn't automatically translate into financial freedom or early retirement. For example, if you have the typical breakdown, around 60 to 70% of your wealth in home equity and the rest in investments, then only about $300,000 of that net worth is invested. Following the commonly cited 4% withdrawal guideline, that would generate roughly $12,000 per year. That's nowhere near the lifestyle most people imagine when they hear the word millionaire. But this is where things really change. Once $1 million is actually invested in compounding assets, the math begins working in your favor in a powerful way. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned about 10% per year on average before inflation. At that pace, $1 million can grow to $2 million in about 7 years, even without adding a single additional dollar. Extending the timeline, that $1 million would grow to about $4 million in about 14 or 15 years. That growth doesn't require perfect timing or extraordinary skill. It requires time, consistency, and the ability to stay invested. The exciting part is that this concept works no matter where you are in your wealth journey. Even if you're starting with $10,000, $50,000, or $100,000, the same compounding math applies. No matter how much you have, the amount can double in about 7 years with average market returns. So you don't need $1 million to start benefiting from momentum. Now, the reason so many people never experience this doubling isn't because the math fails, it's because behavior gets in the way. Once people reach that first million, it feels like a finish line rather than a checkpoint. Money starts coming out for lifestyle upgrades, large purchases, and people have the sense that they've made it. But compounding only works when capital stays invested. Pulling money out early slows growth, resets the clock, and can turn what would have been a predictable second million into something that never materializes. This is why patience becomes such a powerful advantage at this stage. Every year the money remains invested, it grows not just on the original amount, but on all the gains from prior years. Over time, that momentum compounds on itself. What looks like a massive leap from the outside often turns into a fairly steady progression for those who stay the course. And this brings us back to perception versus reality. We often need reminding that what looks impressive on the surface doesn't always reflect what's happening financially. Just because someone's life appears perfect online, constant travel, dining out, endless spending, does not mean their balance sheet is strong. In many cases, the opposite is true. But numbers don't exaggerate. They don't curate highlights. They simply show what is and what isn't. So step back and look at the data, and the picture is very clear. Only 5 to 7% of adults have a net worth of $2 million or more, and around 10% have reached $1 million. These milestones are pretty rare, not impossible, but they require time, consistency, and understanding how wealth grows. And the good news, even if you're starting with $10, $50, or $100,000, the same rules apply. Start early, stay consistent, and momentum will work in your favor.